Good morning, everybody. It's Tom Christie back in the carving shop, and this will be session 5 of carving a pair of Northern Common Eiders. And these will not be working decoys, so I don't have to hollow them out. We don't put a keel on them. They don't have to float in the water. These are going to be for a private collection. And so I'm going to add a little additional carving detail today in session 5. Maybe just bump out a few feather groups on the side pockets, maybe put a few splits in here and there. And then we'll get the heads mounted and getting pretty close to getting these carvings finished up. If you're enjoying my channel, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, but that does help me out as I continue to build this channel, which is to provide resources for people that might want to carve decoys or wildfowl of any kind. And I hope this channel is helpful. Let's get going. Here's just a quick shot of the pair after sanding. And there's still a little bit of fine sanding to do, but I'm going to do some additional carving. So I want to get that done before I do the finished sanding on both birds and get the heads mounted. So let's do a little bit of layout work here and decide where to bump out a few feather groups. I've got some feather groups sketched in on the side pockets of both birds, and now we'll do a little bit of grinding. These are not individual feathers, they're groups of feathers. So in the painting process we'll be able to convey that, but this will throw a little bit of a shadow and some structure to the side pocket areas. All right, I'm going to start with my round cylindrical burr, about a 1/4 inch diameter, and basically go in and outline each of these feather groups. Cut a deep groove. We don't want to go too deep here. I want this to be pretty subtle when we're done. But it needs to be deep enough that we can develop some roundness in the feather group, if that makes sense. So we'll start by outlining things. I'm going to speed the video up here a little bit. Okay, I'm at 2 times speed. And if you've watched my other videos, I've demonstrated this before, but if you're only doing an eider, I'm going to include it here. I'm just doing some outlining first. And I use the burr here because it's fast. You could choose other tools. This is just the way I prefer to do it. I'll have to come back and do a lot of smoothing after I do the rough carving with the burr. But you can see it makes pretty fast work. Cuts wood quickly. So now I'm going back. I'm taking each feather group down at the base so that it's lower than the overlapping feather group in front of it. And then I'm going to, once I take those down, I'm going to round the feather groups. And again, this is all just rough work, very rough work with the burr, but it's quick work. So I'm taking each of those feather groups, same type of process. Lower at the base of the feather group and then round the edges. So you get the idea. I'll skip ahead here a little bit further along, and I'll give you a little better view of this as I'm finishing up here. All right, let's take a look at this with overhead lighting. You can see it's starting to cast some shadows in here. I've got a lot of work to do, but I'll keep working on that. All right, we're further down the road here, and I've used a ruby bit to clean up the grinding that I've done. And now I'm going to use my 1/2 inch drum sander and just do a lot of the rough sanding and really smooth things out. And I can use the tip of the sanding drum to do a little bit more sculpting where it needs it. and to get into tight spots like this where things just need to be smoothed out. So you can see it's starting to take shape. It was much too harsh before, and we want to end up with a nice soft look here and not like a bag of marbles. And that's a challenge. But now I'm going to do some hand sanding, knock things down a little further, soften everything up, hand sanding. And again, once I lay paint over these bumps, there's going to be intermediate feathers in these feather groups that kind of break things up, but it'll give us a nice soft look. A lot of work yet to do, but that gives you the idea. I want to go back in, and I've penciled in a few feather splits just in strategic locations. I'm not going to try to carve every feather split in here. I just want to break up these feather groups a little bit. And I'm going to use a little 1/8" round ruby bit, cylindrical ruby bit. It has grit on the end of it as well as the sides. And just go in and put some subtle splits in here. And these will just complement the paint splits that I add later to give it a little dimension. So I don't want to go overboard on the splits, but I want to put a little bit more detail in here to really convey softness in these side pocket feathers in particular. On the drake, this side pocket is going to be black, so it's really going to look nice with a few splits thrown in and then a lot of painted dimensional work on the side pockets to really make them pop. I'll speed this up a little bit. Okay, we're at 2 times speed here and just finishing up these splits. I think I'm going to flip the decoy around here so you can get a little better look at that. Very quick look. But now I'll work on the other side in similar fashion. Just kind of 1-stroke split, and then I'll go back and sand all of those so they're nice and soft. We don't want to leave any rough edges that look unnatural. You can see they're kind of sharp edged right at this point, and I'm going to want to soften that by sanding all of those split areas. Just sanding over everything. Here's a quick look at that side pocket after just a few splits. I put a few splits in these feathers back here. I'm doing some sanding to smooth things out. And I'll use the same process on the hen and then come back. This is at 2 times speed, and I'll just show a little bit of this same process working on the hen with the 1/4" burr again, and penciled in the feather groups, outlining each feather group, then lowering the base of each feather group and rounding the back edge of each feather group. So I won't show much of this. We've already seen it on the drake, but I did want to show a little bit of the layout that I had done on the hen and following a similar process here. So I'll jump ahead just a little further along. But you can see the feather groups starting to be defined with the burr, and then we'll smooth everything out with ruby bits and the sanding drum. I use DevCon 2-part epoxy, 5-minute epoxy to glue the heads on, and I'll let that set, and then we'll use some Bondo to blend in the neck joint and hide that. I used Bondo body filler on the necks and put a liberal amount on there and forced it in. So I'm going to let that cure overnight, and then we can take care of that neck joint. Okay, I'm using this little flame-shaped burr and just with a little light touch, knocking down all the high spots on the Bondo. It was kind of a messy Bondo job, and I apologize for that, but it was really hard to get in around these necks for some reason and get a nice smooth application of the Bondo. It happens. So I'm just going back to clean it up and remove all the high spots. And then I'll use some sandpaper to really smooth out that neck joint, blend it into the surrounding wood so that you can't see any kind of a joint between the head and the body when it's all said and done. This is a rolled up piece of 80 grit sandpaper, and then I'll go back over this with a rolled up piece of 150 grit and just continue to work it down until I'm satisfied with the look. Now I'm just going to use the belt sander to smooth off the bottom of the decoy. It's a rough Tupelo down there, so I just want to take that down where it's nice and smooth. And the belt sander does a nice job. Takes a little while because I don't have a heavy grit on the belt sander here, but I'll get both of these cleaned up and then we'll brand the decoys. All right, I've got the brand heated up. And I like to put a brand on my decoys just as a permanent mark. Like that. Good to go. I'm going to seal the birds with several coats of what used to be called Deft, is now called Prolux semi-gloss. And I'll put 4 or 5 coats on the bird. Not try to lay it on too heavy to begin with. And I'm going to get my respirator on, but I wanted to be able to talk as I begin this part of the demonstration. So I'll get both birds sealed up and then be back. Just a quick note, now that I have the birds sealed, I'm going to put a painting handle bracket on the bird, and I made these myself, and I have a video on my YouTube channel for how you make one of these if you care to check that out. But it's basically a short block of Tupelo that's cut out in this manner, and then this is an old file handle that you can get probably at the hardware store, and it's just screwed on. This is an electrical bracket, so you can find a bracket of some sort, and then I just screw this to the bottom of the decoy and use that as a handle for painting. This one is a little less elaborate, an old bracket again with a piece of 3/4 inch dowel screwed in, but it does the job. And I like these brackets because as I'm painting, oftentimes you need to stop and the bird is wet, and you can just set it in the bracket and not worry about it. And I'll show you that after I get them attached to the bird. This is the painting stand. Now I've got the handle attached, and I just fill those holes after I'm done with all the painting with plastic wood, refinish the bottom, take care of the holes, but it gives me a nice stand as I paint the bird, and it's easy to get to. I've got both birds on paint stands now, and I'm going to mask off the bottom of each decoy and then use the paint handle as I prime coat the bird. And I'm going to use Rust-Oleum 2X Ultra Cover Flat Gray Primer. I'm not hung up on that, just a flat gray primer. I get questions about why do I use a primer? Long time ago, I had a problem at a competition where my acrylic paint started to lift away from the sealed bird. Since that time, I've put a primer on. I haven't had any more issues. I can't guarantee that the primer is the solution to that particular challenge, but I just feel like primers are made to be a base coat and promote adhesion between this sealed wood and what goes on top of it, and it just gives me another layer of protection for the bird. So that's why I do it, right or wrong. I've got this video sped up, and I just wanted to show you some of the priming process and the use of the paint handle in that regard. It really keeps your hands out of the paint and makes it easy to manipulate the bird around. All right, everybody, we've taken these Northern Common Eiders from kind of reference materials to a drawing of the pattern, to the pattern itself, the cutout, the carving, the sealing, the priming, and the pair is done and ready for paint. I'll let those dry overnight. I hope this has been helpful to you. One way to carve a pair of eiders. Here's just a few quick close-ups of the birds. You can see that texture on the bill has translated through the paint, the primer, pretty well. View from the front. Same with the hen. And the splits I put in will really kind of fade into the paint that I put on top of this, but add to the effect. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Northern Common Eider project. We've taken these from beginning to end. These are ready to paint. I'm not sure about a painting video. I'm not going to do a how-to painting on my YouTube channel, but I may put painting videos together. I don't have an Eider hen, Eider drake painting video available for sale on my website yet. So I got to give that some thought. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you'll try your hand at an Eider when the time is right. And this YouTube channel will be here when you need to tune in, check it out, and maybe get some helpful tips on carving your own Eider pair. Just a shout out to everybody that has subscribed and all of you that are tuning into my channel. I really appreciate it. It makes me feel like it's worthwhile. This channel is all about providing resources and help to get people interested and encouraged to try their hand at carving wildfowl of all types. It's a great hobby. It's been great for me, and I just wanted to share that with as many people as I can. Until next time, Tom Christie signing out. Thanks again for tuning in.